Item 8, public hearings. Notices have been published, posted in mail. Hold public hearing, waive reading, and adopt ordinance extending temporary moratorium on the establishment and operation of medical marijuana collectives. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. As you know, on October 13th, the city enacted a moratorium on medical marijuana.
Excuse me just 1 minute. Your microphone isn't operating correctly.
Okay, good.
Much better.
Thank you. As you know, the City Council on October 13th enacted a medical marijuana moratorium on collectives. And I want to be clear that that related to collectives only and did not, as you know, affect individual users and the laws that pertain to the use of medicinal marijuana in one's home, either possession or cultivation or use for those particular purposes. The moratorium by government law could only be enacted for a maximum time frame of 45 days. And so that moratorium is going to expire on November 27th by its own terms. What the government code requires is that at least 10 days prior to the expiration of that moratorium, that city staff, or that the city council rather, adopt a report, and that is in part the purpose of the report this evening. The report had to occur this evening in order to make that 10-day limitation. So by the government code, what is required that staff do in the interim is report back to you on the measures that are taken, if any, to alleviate the conditions that led to the moratorium in the first place. And what I'd like to be clear about is that there really isn't anything significant that I feel that I can add to my report this evening that wasn't already provided to you on October 13th. And that is because the primary issues are really legal. Now, there is in your report a report from the police chief, if you would like to hear more from him this evening, but I think I can summarize his report this way. And that is that the police chief is unconvinced that regulations could adequately address the negative impacts associated with collectives. I think that was his opinion on October 13th, and his report indicates that his opinion has not changed since then. I do think that there is a value in continuing to study different cities that have enacted have enacted regulations overseeing collectives, and to analyze whether there is any valuable information to be gleaned in the particular manner that they've regulated them that might inform the City Council as to how it wants to proceed. But overall, my recommendation is really the same as it was on October 13th, and that is to recommend to the City Council a continuation of the moratorium. And the reason for that is because the legal landscape has not changed whatsoever in that time. There isn't really much for me to add. There are no new cases. The issue comes down to this: does the City Council wish to allow but regulate collectives, or does it wish to enact a ban? And in presenting to you the full panoply of options, at this time I cannot recommend to you a permanent ban, because it is not clear that that is a legally viable option for you. There is litigation underway that may answer that question for you, but it will not occur or will not come to a conclusion anytime soon. And therefore, that is the basis of my recommendation to you. However, if you know already that that is not the direction that you want to go, that you don't want to enact a permanent ban, then there are a number of different options that the City Council could consider in terms of regulating collectives. There are a number of different approaches that cities have taken. Now, we talked about that a little bit last time, but I regret that I did not engage you in a fuller discussion of those options, because one of the things you asked me to do was to come back with an alternative, and that was a proposed ordinance that would allow the city to allow but regulate collectives. Now, I did draft up an ordinance that is based on the San Mateo model, but in drafting that ordinance, it made me realize that I didn't feel that I had the council's collective direction on exactly which option you would prefer. So I wanted to spend a few minutes just reviewing those with you. They are in your packet. One city has used the approach of saying that medical marijuana collectives are allowed, but only by state licensed facilities that are facilitating the care of elderly or sick patients. That is how Colma has approached it. A second option is to approach it by zoning, limiting where medical marijuana collectives could be located within the city. And that is the approach that South San Francisco, our neighbor, has used, although it is my understanding that they are now currently reconsidering whether that is the approach that they actually want to use or not. A third option is to say that collectives may be allowed, may be, in a sense, self-regulated by a board that the city appoints, made up of persons who are operating collectives within the city. And that is the approach that Berkeley has used. So they've used a very liberal approach, saying, yes, they can exist. They'll be overseen by a board made up of people who are engaged in operating those facilities, but they'll only allow 3 within the city. And then the last option is that which has been adopted by both the city of San Mateo and the county of San Mateo, in which there's no limitation by zoning per se. It's treated like any other business, but a conditional use permit is required. So those are the primary approaches that the city council might wish to further consider. And there would be 2 ways I see that we could look at that. One is that the city council, if it would like more information on any or all of those approaches, could convene a study session to obtain more information about these approaches. Or if you feel prepared this evening to provide me guidance and direction, then I'm prepared to move an ordinance to the Planning Commission as soon as possible, and would suggest that you enact a shorter moratorium while that process occurs. So that completes my report, and I'd like to see if you have any questions for me this evening.
Questions of staff?
The Chair? Just with several, but to start out with, if we enact the longest moratorium that we can, the 22 months and so many days, does that preclude us from sometime in the middle there or any time in between taking action? Or do we have to wait till the end?
No, it does not preclude you from coming back at an earlier time. You would simply rescind that ordinance or repeal that ordinance and then enact a new one. There would be a 30-day period while you have to adopt, I'll just say it's a 30-day period in order to repeal an ordinance. So that's
Okay.
the time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone that'd like to address us, I just need you to go to the podium and give us your name and street name for the record.
Good evening. Richard Silva. I live in Pacifica. I got a call this morning from the reporter, and he's pretty, valid on that. You've all made your decisions, and that's fine. Whatever you need to do to educate further, it's fine. But I brought some folks along with me tonight. I have Suresh here in the front. He's our financial backer, 100% legitimate real estate man, owns several businesses in San Bruno. We're not drug dealers that have piled bunches of money together and are, looking to profit. My man Dave in the front there, he has a medical marijuana card, the seal of California on it. He'd pass that on to you. And, the bottom line is there are delivery services and there's illegal services that you can't control, that you have no control over, no matter how hard you try. It's happening. There's one in Millbrae, and that's happening. It's popping up everywhere. What we would provide to you is an open door of regulations. We want to work with you. The chief's report, I was fortunate enough to come across. I guess they're sent to all the chiefs in California, and they compare marijuana to opium. And, you know, I understand you make your own personal decisions, and you also have direction from your peers, but I believe that report was in October, Chief, that came down?
I need you to direct.
Oh,
your
sorry. So
comments
anyways,
there.
every chief in California is not going to be for this. That's just the way it's going to be. He's not going to put himself out there that way. So on the other side of the grass there, we want to work hand to hand with the police. We're not disguising things. That's what went wrong in South City, is they weren't upfront. I gave you a complete inventory of how things would work. And our whole goal is not to sell marijuana. What we would like to do is educate people so that they can grow it themselves. I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, with the healthcare issues we have, if you could grow your own medicine in your closet and be self-sustaining, why wouldn't you? So that's where I stand. And those are my beliefs, and they won't change. And whatever your decision tonight, Ms. Thompson has my number. I'm willing to work with you folks today, tomorrow, 22 months, whatever you want to do, but I don't think you're going to get a better applicant than me and my cohorts, and that's how I feel about it. So thank you very much for your time.
Excuse me,
Sir?
one of questions, and as do I. Yeah, first off, you mentioned that some reporter talked to you and told you that I had made up my mind.
Well, no, he said that it was going to be a recommended 22-month moratorium by the staff.
Oh, okay, because I haven't spoken to any reporter, so I was wondering how they knew
You know what?
either he or she
I was glad
that I
you
had
told
made
me
up
the
my
answer was
mind.
no, so I didn't have to wait all day to worry about it, no anticipation. So I came with a different mindset. And I understand.
And that's fine.
Yeah, but you know what? It's America, and there's opportunities everywhere. And
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't someone speaking for me that hadn't spoke to me personally.
there's rumors all over the place.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Mr. Ray?
Through the chair. So what other facilities do you operate, do you sponsor? Where are they?
I personally have one patient, and that's all I've ever done. Like I said, this isn't my profession. I'm in the restaurant business. So this isn't Suresh's profession. He's a property manager. He owns real estates. He owns a liquor store. Dave owns his own pool company. So, you know, other than having working knowledge on how to grow and have been members of clubs and see how the business end works of it, that's where our interest comes in. And it's nice to give back. There's not going to be another collective, or none of the collectives give back the way they should, period. And we like to set the standard. I know that if you gave us a shot, you know, the chief wouldn't want the new squad cars coming from our collective, but under our corporation, there would be so much donations that, you know, and of course schools and everything. I mean, we're here to give back. San Bruno, you know, it's got a lot of vacant real estate, and I just think it starts from, you know, square one. And, you know, I can guarantee to help beautify the city, definitely. I mean, it's fun to be creative about giving back.
So where are the closest collectives?
You have one in Millbrae, it's a delivery service. You have one in South City, that's 50-50. And it goes from San Mateo, Redwood City. I think Burlingame has a delivery service. You can actually go to weedmaps.com, and they'll direct you to your locus.
So the reason you would want one in San Bruno is more for convenience for people, or?
No necessary reason why it has to be in San Bruno. It doesn't necessarily have to be in San Bruno. It's just, if there's not one there, I lived in San Bruno for 8 or 9 years. I know the people of San Bruno, and I know there's lots of marijuana transactions going on every single day in San Bruno. And, you know, whether the city wants to take an opportunity to drive some funds back into it, any way you can in this economy, I think you should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Me? Any other members of the public wishing to address the city council? Okay, this is a public hearing. If we close the public hearing, you will be precluded from speaking on this item. So, seeing no one, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Council discussion?
Through the chair.
Councilwoman O'Connell?
Thank you. I personally don't know enough about all this, and I've never encountered anyone who's used one, and I've read all the information we've given, but it seems to be in a state of flux as far as how to best deal with it, how to best satisfy everyone, and how to best do all this. So I would personally love to have a study session where we get all sides and learn more about it before we make any definitive decision on it.
Well, the only problem is that you have, or thing you have to consider is you have a moratorium that's expiring on the 27th of November.
You're right.
Okay,
What
so
I
I mean,
meant to say was if we do the moratorium or a moratorium of any length in between the end of that moratorium and before the end of that moratorium, we have a study session to make a more definitive decision.
Okay. Any other comments from council?
Through the chair, just briefly, I agree. It's too many things that I have questions all over the place, and I'm sure this applicant has a lot of information and can pass on and be very informative at a study session along with other individuals and other organizations. So I think we've done very well in getting enough information to make a statement, make a decision at study session. So I'm in favor of extending the ordinance, extending the moratorium.
Through the chair.
Councilmember Medina?
I am also going to share as far as extending the moratorium. I know in South San Francisco, and I don't know if it's the one on Spruce that we're referring to, I know that there was some dialogue of there's something on Spruce. There was supposed to be another one going in on Utah on the 100 block. There is still a for lease sign at that property. I went by trying to look. I wanted to educate myself to understand better. Honestly, my understanding of it, and again, maybe very naive, is that it was these type of things are to help maybe serve folks that are having cancer and trying to alleviate their pain. When I hear from the speaker as far as educating people to grow it in your closet, and there's tons of there's transactions going on throughout the city streets, that is not all that I have envisioned and encompassed as far as the collective is concerned. So I know in South City they've introduced, I think if I'm not mistaken, last month a moratorium themselves, trying to better understand and educate themselves, even though already approving something on Utah, and now they're in discussion about that itself. So that's our neighbors to the north. I do believe that it's a difficult issue. It's not an easy one way or another. I've had emails from folks. I've had phone calls. And there's a diversity of opinion on this on all sides. But as one person who emailed me, who I called her, she said, don't have a knee-jerk reaction and just say no. Give it the thought, give it the time, give it the understanding and the concern that it deserves, and the people that it serves, or those folks that may have a second opinion on it. So for all those reasons, I think it only does us more of a better opportunity to better understand everything from the ground level up. And honestly, Mr. Silva, you've been the gentleman that spoke here in a prior meeting, and I think it's important for us to hear from not only our residents of this community, but from other folks and how it's either benefited or affected them one way or the other.
Just on the study session, I think that's a great idea, and there are a lot of unanswered questions, but I would think the council would be best served to give staff some direction when you have a study session as to the types of questions you want answered or the types of examples that you want. I mean, because I would predict that if you had a study session next month, the study session wouldn't be much different than the meeting you have now, except I won't be there. So I think you need to lay out, when you do have a study session, what you're looking for. And
I don't know, are you looking for some suggestions now? Or
I don't know
just
if
later
the council's
time?
prepared now or at a later time. I mean, right now, all that's really before us is the moratorium, and do you want to extend it? And if you do, but I would suggest it at the time when you call for a study session, and you probably want to do that sooner than later. You know, there's no need to call it in the 20th month to find out that you don't have the information and the moratorium's expiring. You'd probably want to call it in 3 or 4 months at best, but to give staff some direction as to what information you're looking for. that, is there any action from council?
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to I want to adopt an ordinance, so I believe, make a motion to adopt an ordinance extending the temporary moratorium to not exceed 22 months, 15 days.
Yeah, so we'd need a waiver of the first reading first. You need to
Make a motion to waive the
motion
reading?
to waive the first reading.
Second.
Motion and second to waive the first reading. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance extending the temporary moratorium on the establishment and operation of medical marijuana collective to not exceed 22 months and 15 days.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moratorium is in place for 22 plus months plus. City Attorney?
City Attorney.
So was that a 5?
That was a unanimous vote.
Thank you.